memories of, back in the 70s, 60s, of how they were so much Black Power, Panthers, any of that? Why is it almost like we put it to death? Like you see no more people talking about it, no more people coming together about it. It's almost like we just dropped off the fact that they had to fight through the slavery, fight through the back being, Black Power, all that. And now it's just like it's disappeared and it's gone. Why isn't there more groups that are pushing for that empowerment and the Black people anymore?
Oh, there are. There's just, we don't get media attention. We don't have a written culture. So none of the things that we do are transcribed. And if they are, we're not allowed to be published. We've been oppressed to the point where they don't want us to be able to let our people and our families know that they don't have to live under oppression. The oppressor owns publishing companies. The media only, think about it. How many times have you seen the media interview somebody? They pick the woman in Converse with house shoes on. I seen the whole thing. Hide your eyes. And that gets all of the YouTube hits you can think of. And yet, the brother in the suit that saw the whole thing, they don't ask him. They didn't ask him what happened. You know what I'm saying?
So it's almost like as a common thread all across the U.S., everybody just act like they've forgotten about it. Literally, there's little groups, but really, we've let it pretty much.
Bro, I'm telling you that there's just like the Urban Family Center. There's tons of people doing things, trying to make a difference, but we don't get any press. And so what we do get is all the negative press. When we find out, we know every city that has gang members, every city has drug dealers. We know what they look like. They're all dark-skinned, they're wearing hoods, and you should shoot them because they got a pack of Skittles in their hand. That's literally how we're represented in the media. And so if you have no press, except for negative press, people start to believe that it's hopeless. They start to think that their communities are dormant and that nobody cares about them, and they live like that because that's what's offered to them.
So the answer really is to put it out there, to let it be known that people are trying to
that's a little different
make
than
a
what I'm
difference,
saying,
make it
though.
better.
It's almost like we had a plan and that they had an agenda, and that agenda got so far, they succeeded so far, and then the next generation just dropped the plan. What am I saying?
All of a sudden, like Black Power, I can talk about like Black Power, right? We're talking about like the Black Panthers and all the movements that were out. They arrested key leaders. Fathers disappeared. It wasn't just like poof. All of the Black community, his father. They were strategic. Even when they were even pitting our leaders against each other.
We're not on that point.
Because the people remember Malcolm X, right? Remember with Malcolm X? Bro, but they're not even available. They take them out of print. You know what I'm saying? They're not on the shelves. Look at Malcolm X when him and Martin Luther King, like some of our last media publicized leaders. There's still tons of powerful Black leaders right now, but you don't hear about them. Like you didn't hear about the all-Black college that had 100% graduation, like prep school, 100% all-male college. All-male high school with not only 100% graduation but 100% college acceptance. No media attention. It was on YouTube, thank God. But did any of us hear about it? No, because you only hear about the high school that had 20% graduation. That they make a big deal about the one graduate who made it to college, and woo-hoo for him. All of you can be like him if you just try. Just like the NBA and NFL. One of you will make it out of all of you. At least one. At least be happy about that one. They don't publicize the many that are succeeding. They do that on purpose. That's like strategic. And our Black leaders, they were getting rid of us like, man. They ended up in jail, like Tupac Shakur. A lot of people that were for the movement, they got arrested, trumped up charges. They were phone tapping, following, pitting each other against. A lot of people believe that the Biggie Smalls and Tupac thing was a setup by the government because they were speaking the truth. And they made money off of their little bickering because it pitted Black people against Black people.
They were.
Everything they do to us is strategic. It's not as simple as people just gave up.
And you're right.
The oppressed will rise against oppression eventually. Somebody does.
The movement.
Because I think that American society is more focused on, okay, well, let's put them in, like how Tel said earlier, the society of entertainment. Let's make the basketball stars. Let's make the football stars. Let's praise those people. And let's make musicians as well. Oh, let's have him talk about his gang. Talk about his sex. Talk about his money. That's what the the young teens want to hear.
But
They don't want to hear about us empowering ourselves.
They used to talk about
or
real
us
issues
getting
and
above
real,
and beyond of
you know?
what it was.
Yeah, but what I'm more so talking about is like why us as a people, not so much of what others or what they're doing to us, but why us as a people.
Why did we drop the ball,
Yeah,
right?
why did we kind of get to the point of where it's almost like we got the freedom, we didn't have to fight for the freedom anymore, and it's going to take something else that's major big that's going to make us all want to come together, kind of like the Rodney King thing.
But you know, my thing
How
on
all of a sudden that made a group of people want to come together all of a sudden
do the
strong.
right thing again.
I mean, you had Crips, Bloods that said, okay, we're coming together, unite. But what is it
What's right? They find a way to still make it negative. We destroyed our own communities based upon the Rodney King. We didn't destroy anybody else's
But
community.
no, it wasn't necessarily their community. It was the Asians that were owning all those stores. So to them, it didn't look like, but to them, it didn't look like it was their community because they still felt.
But it was our buildings in our community that looked at trashed and looked at abandoned and still do to this day.
But they did go outside theirs, actually. But they did go further. But my point is like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, how they came together for that, and now that's over, we just grab it.
And I'm going to respond to that. In response to that, I don't think it's that black people dropped the ball. Like you said, after the Black Panther movement, it was like Chantel said, they arrested a lot of our black men, and then they flooded the city with crack. People were so lost and everything distraught by what like you said, it's strategic. They intended for us to like walk away from that. It wasn't just black people saying, you know what, we don't need to do this no more.
Well, not like that, but I'm saying, what is it about us that make us not want to pick up the ball? Again, now that we're seeing the ways that it's being manipulated, how we're still not together, how we're still not unified, what is it? Why don't we pick the ball back up?
Slavery, right? What they did is they had the house Negro and they had the field Negro, right? And what they did is they pitted one against the other. Then there was the light-skinned Negro and there was the dark-skinned Negro. They pitted one against the other.
Yeah.
They've always found strategic ways to keep us from being. It's just like the Bible said. If they're unified, there's nothing. If they're unified, there's nothing that they can't do. So they constantly find ways to break us back down whenever we get to those points. Like segregation, when we talked about segregation. Yeah, we wanted equality. But I think personally, separate but equal would have been nice. Because then the black-owned businesses would have still thrived. Black men could have still provided for their families, been home and intact with their families. But what happened? It desecrated black businesses. So black men weren't able to provide for their families. What did that serve? Hopelessness. What does that do to a black man? Debilitate his ability to provide for his family. What does that do to a man? It debilitates his ability to be a man. Eventually you turn to crack, you turn to heroin, especially if they're served it to you on a platter. You're walking down the street sad that you can't provide for your family, and herein, but that's been the way they've done it for years. I mean, even in places like Ireland, there's a pub on every corner. You know what I'm saying? And so it's debilitation. It's the complete lack of providing resources, to where that person no longer has the hope to think they can do something for their people if they can't even do something for their homes. You got your family dying. You got half your family strung out. They're abusing each other, abusing themselves. It's hopeless.
So
It
the real
feels
question is,
hopeless.
how do you break the cycle of where we are now? What do we do to break the cycle of where we are? You know,
People perish for their lack of knowledge.
it really has.
My people perish for the lack of knowledge. It goes back to the first point we made when we started this trip. If we don't tell our people what they're capable of, if we don't encourage our children, if we're taking our frustrations out of our children and abusing them because that's the slavery mentality, that's the only way to discipline our children, we're going to constantly reinstitute the same mentality that our kids are going to reintroduce into their own children. It's the piece of the genetic reintroduction. We have to start deciding to do things differently. It literally has to become something that we're going to discipline ourselves to do. Just like wanting to change our diet or change our home environments. It has to start with making a mental and an emotional change, period. But also because we got to talk to each other about it. Black people ain't talk to each other.
We're not. We're very separated.
Yeah. And it's, but like you can say, like in a grocery store, you can see a black mother scolding her child and making it very obvious to others It's just like the slave mentality is just like so
It's still
embedded.
there. It's
It's just
still
like
there today.
they think it's the bomb to be like being able to curse your child out hardcore, you know, shut your mouth, you know, and go off on them. And that's the black. It's almost like we look at it like that's our identity. That makes us big and bad,
Right.
you know. And it's just.
But
Once you come out of that, you can see how you're still there. Your mind is still there. But why don't we do anything to get others to kind of bring us all out of that? It's almost like we look at them and we just go, oh, there's the the mentality.
But then,
they're
you know,
still there.
that
where that came from.
The reason
the black woman had to start putting her child in check so that they weren't a product of death, basically.
Yeah,
meaning that if I don't beat you, somebody will. If I don't put you in line, he's going to put you in line, and it's going to be your life. So I'm trying to get you in line so that I can save your life. And now we don't have that same need, but that same idea is passed on to the next generation.
Realize that. Why don't we do more to bring people out of that? It goes back to more than being a black thing. Then it's just a human society thing. Right. It's the selfish nature. It goes back to the selfish nature. That's why we don't go out and help other people.
And it's a pride issue too.
That's part of it too.
Black people don't want to look like they can't control their kids. You know what I mean? There's that sense of, oh, mine's in check. I know. Watch me with mine.
I got mine.
It's like, what does that have to do with anything in real life? I mean, what are they going to do with that? But not only, I mean, another thing to consider is, wait, I lost my train of thought. I don't know what else. Go ahead.
Well, with all that being said, again, we do need to come together more as a community because, like we were all just pointing out, we are so divided and not united. We don't know how, or are too stubborn to want to help somebody else out or help them up. You know, it's like we're crabs in a pot. You see one person getting higher than you, and you want to find a way to pull them back down or keep them where you're at. Instead of pulling everybody up to that level of achievement, we're trying to keep everybody down on the bottom because we can't find our own way to get up there.
Or a lot of the self-help or the places of where people are helping, it's always with the same thing. Oh, we're going to help them with education. Oh, we're going to help them with, you know, funding. It's not getting to the core of why we still are not united. We're still not dealing with the fact that what are the real issues, you know, and to try to get this dysfunctional lifestyle back on track. Nobody's trying to address it, and I think it goes back to a lot of where you just say that there's nothing wrong with your family because you're so used to dysfunction.
But you also said something key. You said that, well, what I got out of that was some people are so caught up in where something's going to go that we forget the whole purpose of what we're doing. So when we do start little forums or little groups and want to make a difference, all of a sudden it becomes about funding and becoming an organization and becoming successful and how we're going to support ourselves. But really, sometimes it's just about being a volunteer again. It's about starting over from scratch and saying, you know what, we need to start helping those in our community and teaching those in our community and showing them other ways as opposed to always trying to look for it to become a job or a responsibility with a title, like our churches. You know what I mean? Think about how many people start going to church because they needed help. They needed to find some place to feel secure, and all of a sudden it became about, I got to be the usher board, and I got to make it to Wednesday Bible study, Thursday Sunday school, and your whole week's full of activities that have nothing to do with the community. It's like, okay, but I can't stand when churches have this whole, you know, ministry going, and their neighborhood, their block even hasn't been affected by what they do. It's like Jesus hung out with what, like Jerome said, prostitutes, thieves, tax collectors. There was a reason that he was out in the community, and he didn't build a church and say, come to my church. He went out into the community, stayed out into the community to try to make a difference. And we've lost that sense. Everything becomes an issue of, how do we start this? What is this going to become? Who's a president? Who's in charge? Who I got to listen to? Who told you were going to be the leader? And it's just about, you know what? Widows and orphans. Who's hungry? How can we feed you? I got rice at home. I'll bring the rice. Almost like that book Stone Soup, where the whole community was starving. And everybody had one component, but they made a huge stew that fed the whole community. You know what I'm saying? It's bringing back that mentality that everything isn't based upon success and achievement.
Not physical food, mental food.
Mental food.
Right. That's what we need.
I think
we need to start feeding our community.
The problem is the biggest thing is ego. Yeah. It all comes to ego. That black people have too much ego. Well, ego is pride. I mean, they have too much ego to either admit to their character faults and defects and to do something about it, or some just feel too much shame, you know, like they'll get offended because their ego is so big.
We're so sensitive.
They're not humble enough anymore.
You got people that will literally lose it over the simplest things because they're so sensitive, and that's because they're so caught into what we want, what we need, and achievement. It's all about who's a success story and who's going. And although that's great, granted, we want to go somewhere. Society's too concerned with that. I think there's nothing wrong with sometimes having averages. Everyone, you go to an assembly or an award presentation, and they feel like everybody has to have an award. You know what I'm saying? If you didn't earn it, you shouldn't get it. That's just the bottom. Well, my kid felt like they should have got one too. Why? They got D's. You don't get an honor award. Why are you sad that you didn't get a good grade award if you didn't get good grades? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you didn't earn it, why are parents feeling like their kids should get it? You should train your child to want to earn something if that's what you're about. Not just let them earn something just because they deserve to. Just because you're human? There's an award for being human now? Well, there's a reason people were created to be extraordinary. Allow some people to be, and those that can't, be okay with that. Because in some area of your life, you are extraordinary. It may not be the same as everybody else, but everybody has something.
Everybody was created for a purpose.
Exactly. And live in that lane. But as people, we're so caught up with where we're supposed to be, where we're supposed to go, and we're not going nowhere. You got kids that are consumed with their community, their neighborhood, their block. And that's it.